What could be done to improve poverty and homelessness on our streets?
It's just such a complicated question because it's really nuanced. Without actually having a background knowledge of how these things work, I would say probably we need to get to the root cause of why people are on the streets. Maybe going towards more mental illness, like support, addiction support. That's like really sustainable for people and is long term.
Well, I live in Vancouver in Gastown, which is actually ground zero for the downtown east side and homelessness. I think we need to have more concentrated poverty reduction, but also drug rehabilitation. And we don't have enough of that. I know that's provincial, not federal, but we definitely need to support people to get out of their addiction and to find ways of integrating them back into society.
I think definitely trying to, in Alberta, definitely giving away less money, like of our oil money and stuff like that, and trying to keep it and be used in our own streets and programs for ourselves, and also making sure that not too much of our money goes overseas to places like Ukraine and stuff like that with Trudeau, and trying to keep our money here because we have big problems.
Invest in mental health. I think that's the biggest root cause is insufficient attention to understanding and providing support for mental health. If I choose to be a nomad and live in the street and I have my wits about me, I will do just fine. But many of the people who are homeless or destitute have other things that need medical attention, and our system is not prepared to acknowledge and investigate those. That's turning out to be more and more the answer these days.
I think the issue is always tackled on a very surface level. Things like handing out basic needs and goods is also always very handy and helpful, but the issue goes deeper than that. Ultimately, things like available work and available housing and affordable housing is something that's deep set in the issue that's not often tackled. So things like work opportunities and training and skills and development, and it's very extensive and it requires things like funding and programming and a very strong approach. So it depends what level you're looking at. If you're talking about handing out goodie bags, that's one way to help, and if you're talking about creating jobs and creating housing and whatnot, so it depends how deep you look into it. But
providing harm reduction resources first and housing, and it's got to start there. I don't see anything else being realistic, and so that's where I would start.
Trying to create proper shelters, like shelters for women with children, shelters for men with children, shelters for families. There's no shelters for men with children. And the only shelters for women with children are only women fleeing abuse. Like it shouldn't just be that. There should be more options available for everybody in order to help decrease the homelessness, and also just investing in housing, like investing in affordable housing. And that's where it all comes down to, and having proper employees to do their jobs. People that are being hired to do housing actually do that.
I'm thinking opening up a proper facility, not right in the heart of the high-end residential where there's so much controversy going on. Something with health care, mental health, drug health, and accommodation where they can get help, have a place to stay, and get back on their feet. Maybe it will give them a better chance.
The best thing is a time machine, go back 10 years and put in rent control, but it's what could be done about it? More like social housing isn't always the answer, because that has to be paid for by taxpayers. So everybody's taxes go up, then everything else gets less affordable, because everybody, I guess they have to put a cap on rent increases or set a rate that this price goes for this, but then gets people complain saying that's too socialist.
Well, if I were queen, no, I think it's absolutely essential that we have more compassionate addiction care and support for mental health. And the fact that people who are mentally ill and, addiction is an illness, that they're sleeping on the streets is an atrocity. It's really an atrocity. And if you look at it as if you're coming from another planet, it's like, how could a society do that? Let people sleep in the cold rain just because they're sick. So it's a lack of compassion, and I'd love to see funds put into a much more comprehensive care. I know everybody's saying something like that, but criminalizing and, don't even get me going on what happens to people in prison, but it's about compassion and intelligence.